welcome to the Random Seeders channel. Sorry if it's been a while since I've uploaded a video. Lots of stuff has been going down, you might say, and indeed we now find ourselves in the midst of the end of the world. It's the coronavirus pandemic, of course, as I'm filming this, and I hope those of you who are watching are managing to stay safe, stay inside, and stay positive. And it's with the latter in mind that I am making this video, because it occurs to me that I haven't yet spoken about Star Trek on the Random Seeders channel. And yesterday I watched the 10th and final episode of the inaugural season of Star Trek Picard, and I have some thoughts to share. So I enjoyed it, is the bottom line. I've enjoyed the series, or the first season. It's been, for the most part, a delightful trip down memory lane. I've loved reconnecting with these characters from my youth. Overall, I'm delighted with the direction they've gone in. I think that they've been very clever in using Data's story and the events from the last TNG movie, Nemesis. They've used a lot of ingenuity in carving out a compelling storyline, you could say, based on those events and earlier events in the TNG universe involving Picard's assimilation into the Borg Collective and that kind of thing. So, on the whole, very happy. If I'm going to find criticisms, and I'm very wary of criticising, to be honest, and this applies to Star Trek as well, I just think that it's rather tedious when sci-fi fans jump up and down and complain about stuff that is all made up to begin with. It's all just made up stuff. All of it's implausible, arguably. So why get one's knickers in a twist over this sort of thing? But having said all that, it is just worth registering that there were a few things that could have been done better, and it is a little bit irritating when most of the hard work has been done in making it a good show. You just feel as though with a little bit more thought, it could have been an amazing show. So at the moment, I consider it to be a very good series, one that's very entertaining and very nostalgic. I just think that with a little bit more effort to the storyline, it could have been remarkable, could have been amazing. And I think one of the biggest shames is that they set things up perfectly in the opening episodes for Starfleet to be corrupt, for the Federation to have lost its way, for Picard to become like a renegade character who can't simply call upon the Federation or Starfleet to come and save him when he gets into a pickle. And that's exactly what he ends up doing in episode 9, and in episode 10, spoiler alert, the Federation comes to the rescue. And for me, I just think if you're going to set things up so that Starfleet no longer has Picard's back, you should stick to it. Otherwise, it's just meaningless having all of that backstory and then just dropping it so that, yes, we're going to send a fleet of hundreds of ships. Oh, and by the way, this fleet's going to be led by Will Riker, which was, don't get me wrong, I loved seeing him there commanding this fleet and unleashing smack talk on the Romulans. That was all fantastic. It was just not in harmony with what we'd already been seeing, where, again, Starfleet and the Federation were corrupt and indifferent and no longer cared about true Starfleet values. And Will Riker was like a hermit living in the woods making pizza. How do you go from being a hermit who makes pizza in the woods, which is fine, by the way? I kind of had more respect for Riker's character, knowing that he could just say, to hell with all this, I've done my time, I've done my stint saving the universe, now I deserve to enjoy life with my family. I kind of respected that about Riker. I was like, fair play, fair play. I'm sitting this one out, Jean-Luc, but if you need anything, let me know. Apparently, Picard's distress call went out, and Riker immediately shed all of this isolationism, sent out a message to Starfleet saying, I'm game to return, actually, and go back to being a captain, if that's okay with you. And Starfleet were like, well, actually, since you mention it, we're sending out a fleet of hundreds of ships to help Picard. Would you mind leading this fleet, even though you've been living in woods, being a hermit for years and years, and probably have lost a bit of your edge in terms of commanding a starship, let alone a fleet of hundreds of ships. So that was implausible. And what else was implausible, quite frankly, was what ended up happening to Picard. And I just don't understand why they needed to set it up so that he was dying. That was unnecessary. It was just unnecessary to do that in previous episodes. And then in the final episode, okay, now the clock's run out, now he really is dying. Oh, he's dead. Oh, never mind, we've come up with this implausible solution, so he's back again. You could have just cut out the middleman and not had this ticking clock if what you're going to do is bring him back instantaneously through highly implausible means. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously we've already established that there's quite some sophistication to creating artificial life, but nowhere is it implied that this can be used to give human beings immortality. That's not established in previous episodes, unless I missed it. And also, if you were going to bring someone back that way, why would you limit them? Why would you put, I don't know, safety protocols or whatever into the machine, which the Picard now is, to simulate him being a doddery old man? What does that say about the producer's attitude towards old people? Is that not a bit ageist? Is that not saying, and I don't want to get all SJW on everyone, but is that not saying about old people, they should just get used to this? They are old, not just in their bodies, but in their brains. And if we were to give them an artificial body, it would need to be old and decrepit, because they don't deserve to have superpowers, which is what seems to be the message. And we all know that the reason why they've put those limitations on Picard's new bionic body is because it would be a major headache to have him with superpowers when the actor is, I think, 80 odd. That would have been a nightmare to do. But you're the ones who created the problem in the first place by making it so that Picard was on his last legs. You needn't have done that earlier on. And I mentioned all this to Deanna, and she said, oh, well, it was just to add drama. Well, does that not say something about the writers if the only way they can inject drama is by needlessly killing someone and then immediately bringing them back through highly implausible means? Should you not be good enough as a writer that you don't need to do that sort of thing? You can find other ways of injecting drama other than doing that, other than killing someone and immediately bringing them back. So that didn't sit well with me. I actually think that if they're going to pull that stunt, then they should have done it. They should have gone the whole way, and they should have brought Picard back as his 1990s self, for want of a better word, as his TNG self, which you could potentially do with sort of deep fake technology being the way it is. I mean, presumably you've all seen some of the deep fake videos that are doing the rounds. It's not inconceivable that with a Hollywood budget that they are apparently working with to produce these things, because they're masterfully done, they're like movies now, aren't they? Which I really love, by the way. Some people seem to want the kind of wooden, dreary versions of Star Trek, which were great in their time, but I really think the series needs to move forward, and I appreciate the fact that it's being given the big budget treatment. Same with Discovery. I just think if you're gonna make Picard bionic, go all the way. Use deep fake technology, or whatever the hell it was that brought Governor Tarkin back in Rogue One. Go the whole hog. Let's have young Picard back. I'm sure Patrick Stewart wouldn't mind. I'm sure he'd actually find it quite flattering to be portraying himself as a younger himself. And it would have been groundbreaking as well, wouldn't it? It would have been taking technology that's very much in its infancy and showing what it can do. I think, didn't Will Smith do a film where he was actually acting alongside his younger self in the film? Great, well, let's do that for Picard then. Why couldn't you have done it? You literally created this as the storyline, so follow it through. Don't then say to Picard, well, actually, since you're old, you need to act old, and you need to have the limitations of an old man because we've just decided that that's how it should be. No, once you've decided to do that thing, see it through, please. And I can't sum up my feelings on Picard without referencing, was it episode 5 where everything just went mental? Everything went crazy. And it was like Quentin Tarantino was directing. Actually, it was Jonathan Frakes who directed the episode in question. I think it was episode 5. Where people were just being hacked to pieces. That's it. In the previous episode at the end, I think at the end of episode 4, Elnor chopped someone's head off. And he just got a telling off by Picard, don't do that again, which apparently when someone gets murdered, you just need a telling off by Patrick Stewart, and then everything's fine. And then immediately at the beginning of episode 5, someone's eye is being gouged out, and things get even more gory. Oh, that's right. At the end of the same episode, Bruce Maddox gets killed on his hospital bed when he should be receiving treatment, which was also disturbing. And it didn't feel at all like Star Trek to me. That's not what Star Trek's about. Occasionally, yes, you will have, graphically disturbing things pop up, but it will be a complete one-off, and it immediately will transition to something a bit more calming. And the whole sort of Casino, Patrick Stewart putting on this outrageous French accent and wearing an eye patch. No, none of that was Star Trek. Let's be honest. I didn't like it. It felt wrong. But fortunately, from episode 6 onwards, normality resumed and we got back to decent storytelling without having to shock people. Although, and this is sort of like a criticism that can be applied to other incarnations of Star Trek. There was again inconsistency in how Picard treats murder, because he seems to be quite comfortable with Elnor skewering people and beheading people at random whenever he's being attacked. But with, I forget the name of the character now, the one who killed Bruce Maddox. Shows how closely I follow these things, but I can still enjoy it without knowing all the names. The blonde crew member who kills Bruce Maddox gets a massive telling off, and apparently she's to be taken to the nearest starbase to be handed over to the authorities for the murder of one person. All the while, Elnor's just been having at it, Tarantino style, killing whoever he wants, simply by saying, choose to live, he gets to do whatever he wants. But if the wrong person gets killed, according to Picard, well, we need to invoke law and order at this point. So that was inconsistent, and that there's been that sort of thing going on, I suppose, in Star Trek before. I can remember an episode in which Q was up to his old tricks, and a crew member actually died. It was a red shirt on the bridge, died as a result of Q's hijinks, and the whole thing just got glossed over at the end, and they were all laughing as though everything had been fantastic and it had all just been hilarious. So this inconsistent approach to murder and death and justice, you could say, is also seen in other incarnations of Star Trek, but you just would expect the story writers who are being paid, I'm sure, vast amounts of money to just think about this a bit more. I think, and this is the peculiar thing for me about science fiction, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek, there are some things that pop up in these productions that cost unfathomable amounts of money, and you just think, how did you not figure this out? How come at no point when you were brainstorming this plot and this story, none of you noticed that this was a massive problem? And I'm sure many of you can think of examples of that, not just in Star Wars and Star Trek, but in other popular series, not necessarily just science fiction, where you think, how come with all of this money being thrown at this project, no one's noticed this problem? Why am I noticing this, even though I'm being paid nothing, and even though I'm just the audience member? Anyway, I've been fairly scathing there, I think, and probably you're all getting the impression that I can't stand Picard. I really did enjoy it nonetheless. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about needing to just suspend disbelief and just go with the flow and be entertained. Be entertained. You've never had it so good, science fiction fans. Despite all of these issues that I've just momentarily been ranting about, I'm sorry, this is streets ahead. Come on, it's streets ahead. We can all be nostalgic about the original series of Star Trek, and there were standout moments from it, but there were also moments where, honestly, if I put that on my screen and Deanna walks in, if I put the original series of Star Trek on my Netflix and Deanna walks in and they're all dancing around with lutes or whatever, Deanna's like, what the hell are you watching, Chloe? There was some really cringy stuff, I'm sorry. There was. And it's been a learning process, as with all TV and cinema, of just making things more believable. And even though there will be problems in terms of with character development or acting or whatever in modern incarnations of Star Trek, you just simply cannot deny that it's far more believable as an experience to watch Discovery or watch Picard than it was to watch earlier incarnations of Trek. You really had to, especially with the original series, you really had to strain yourself to think, no, this really is a spaceship, hundreds of years in the future with far advanced technology to what we have. You really had to strain to believe it. But it's totally believable now as being far in the future with massively improved technology. So let's just keep perspective with this, folks. I'm still going to be avidly following the second season of Picard when it comes out. I'm looking forward to seeing more characters emerge. I'd like to see Beverly Crusher emerge, Wes Crusher, he's still alive, is he? I can't remember whether Wes Crusher died or anything. I don't think he died. Again, I'm showing how appalling I am at remembering details from Star Trek. I want to see Worf. I want to see Geordie LaForge. I think we will be seeing Guinan coming back. Brilliant. Bring them all back. Bring them all back. I want to see all of them. But I'm also going to enjoy seeing the new characters developing, because they've got some great characters there in the show. Brilliant. Let's see. Same as with the new incarnations of Star Wars. Let's see the old and the new merging seamlessly, and yeah, let's just see this legacy following through, because it clearly has mileage. Again, I would have liked to have seen more of a battle against a corrupt Federation, and I sense that that's just been thrown out of the window entirely now. But okay, fair enough. The Federation's good again. I can live with that. Let's see how Picard fits into this universe where he's somewhat annoyed and pissed people off who were his former employers, and he's got to kind of get himself back into their good graces. Great, let's see that happen. So those were my thoughts on Star Trek Picard. I'll probably do another video on maybe Wrath of Khan or First Contact in future random Seeders videos, but that's it for now, and yeah, that's it.